the lie or the delusion, the facade, all the narcissism, the witchcraft, the self-promotion, all of that kind of stuff, if you're bought, if you're enslaved, all those things, if you're doing it for popularity or whatever, if you stand for the truth, you're going to live in reality, and that is going to bring pain, but you're building this substance, this character, like you're a person that can really help people, can really
Mm,
guide people.
yes. Welcome to another episode of Negotiate Your Best Life. I'm Rebecca Zung, and I'm so excited today because I have somebody super special here with me. Stovall Weems is a visionary leader. He co-founded one of the most huge mega churches in Florida and really in the United States. And he's an author and a speaker, and he's had more than 2 decades in the area of ministry and leadership. In 2018, he had a really deep, profound spiritual experience, which he's going to talk about today. And it caused him to shift his focus toward mission and impact and purpose, and that is what has brought him to where he is today, but not without its set of struggles and strife and challenges. And so that's what he's going to talk about today. So I am so excited to bring him to you and welcome Stovall.
Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
My pleasure. So you and your wife, who's amazing, by the way, I know Carrie, she's actually one of our high conflict certification coaches, founded Celebration Church back in 1998 in Jacksonville. Do I have the year right?
Yep. 1998. It was, we grew up in Louisiana. I was born in New Orleans. And then we moved to Baton Rouge, and I met Carrie at LSU.
Wow.
And we did missions. I did missions in the Amazon jungle, actually, for a long time. And so when God called us to Jacksonville, Carrie was very relieved that we were coming to Florida instead of the Amazon jungle. So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so you go there, you start this church, and I mean, I know people who've planted churches before, right? And sometimes they grow and sometimes they don't, but you guys were absolutely incredible. I mean, it expanded very quickly. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it did, and it was before, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in a little bit, but it was before what I would call kind of the modern day church growth movement. And so that was today the organization that I used to be a part of, the Church Association, it's like church planting is almost down to a science, which is kind of scary because someone can do it without necessarily being called.
Mm.
That's another conversation. But yeah, when I gave my life to the Lord, I was partying at LSU. I was actually a bouncer in a club, and yeah, my big goal was going from bouncer to bartender, and then I just God found me. It was a really powerful experience. So I gave my life to Him, and just immediately had a heart for missions for the poor. So that's why I spent so much time down in the jungle. And I want to say this to Rebecca, to your listeners. Okay, so back in when was that? 94, 95, 96. Where we were going, there was like the Shining Path terrorists. It was like a really, there's all the cartels and everything like that. Um, and the Amazon was really dangerous. And so today it's interesting because, I'll be watching TV and I'll see some kind of 5-star eco resort, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I almost died there 25 years ago.
Things have
So
changed.
yeah, so I just, I did that. And then, I met Carrie, And so, when you meet someone you love, your risk factor goes down a little.
Uh,
Your, you know what I'm saying? And so we uh we prayed, and we knew that we thought maybe we go down in Peru and Bolivia and Brazil and those places I was working, but the Lord just spoke to us, Jacksonville, Florida. We didn't know anyone in the city. And so we moved with a couple of friends. There were six of us who moved here. We started in a gym. And honestly, I did what I did in the jungle. And that was, going to towns and preach and let God move. And so after the first month, I think we had about 100 people or so. We baptized them in the swimming pool at the little school we were renting, and it just grew from there. And when I resigned from the church in April of 2022, the church, I think we've planted over 100 other churches. We had several locations in the United States and around the world. And yeah, it was a very large growing church, and I'm very grateful, that the Lord allowed me to do that.
so how
And
many people are we talking about at that
it was,
point?
yeah, it was over 20,000 uh people, more members than that. But I would say, with all of the locations, not just in Jacksonville, but in the States and the ones we had overseas, yeah, it was about a little bit over 20,000 people. Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. So, in 2018, you were doing a joint service with a Jewish rabbi. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was a messianic believer. Yeah, so he was
Yes. Okay.
a
So it was during a Passover service that you experienced a profound spiritual experience where you felt transported to the Last Supper. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I love to talk about it. I will say it's, I call it's a big part of my testimony. It takes about 3 hours to really go through because it was very in depth. But I'll give you a very abbreviated version, and then maybe you can ask some questions. So it was Passover, 2018. Passover fell on the same Friday that year as Good Friday. So that's why it worked out really well with my Messianic friend that I knew. I'd seen him do the Seder, um, those Seder Passover dinners, a few years before that, and it was really powerful. And so I was like, hey, why don't, on Good Friday, since it's also Passover, why don't you lead the service and do kind of the mini Seder demonstration? And, we'll do communion, and it'll be great. And we went to the service, and, to be honest, I wasn't feeling real spiritual. I was actually very tired, as many pastors are the week heading into Easter because of all the preparation and things like that. But the months leading up to that, I want to say, um, the Lord started dealing with me and speaking to me in a different way and in a different tone. It was more of a, you need to be careful, you need to listen to me carefully, kind of like this. I'm gonna ask you to do things, or I'm gonna lead you into things that you're not comfortable with. It was that type of impression and leading that I was getting. And so we're at the service, and it was the time where we're taking communion, and my Messianic Jewish friend is praying over the bread. And what he was doing is he was saying these prayers in Hebrew, and then he would repeat them in English. And so he was in the center of the stage, and I was standing next to him. And so when he began to pray, read the scripture and pray over the bread in Hebrew, um, he had been saying things in Hebrew and English before leading up to that, but when he got to the bread part, when he said that part in Hebrew, it was like I heard another Hebrew voice, and it was like mono to stereo, or it was uh, alive. It was like thorough. It was a completely, it's like it's like surround sound. It was a completely different Hebrew voice, not just in how it sounded, but the entire, uh, the presence, the feeling that it brought. And so when that happened, uh, I'm kind of frozen. I'm kind of now, okay, what's going on? I mean, I know, okay, the Lord's doing something supernatural is happening. And then I was there next to him, and I think he was about to serve me the bread, or he was about to kind of, people were going to take the bread for communion. And I was like, I don't know where people are, but I feel the Holy Spirit all the time. I sense the presence of the Lord, the Holy Spirit, many, many times. And the Holy Spirit was there. But all of a sudden, I felt it was the presence of Jesus. And what I mean by that, it was the personality. It was the personality of the Son. It was his personality. That's the best word that I have for it. It was like
The essence.
the essence of Jesus, like his personality, how, I guess when he walked the earth, it was like his personality, his essence. And so I was like, and I sensed it to my left. So, I'm like, I knew Jesus is here. Jesus is here. And then when I looked to the left very carefully, I saw the Lord standing on the other side of the stage, looking out into the congregation. And when I say that I saw him, it was like he appeared, he was looking out. So my Messianic friend Paul's facing out, I'm facing out. I look, Jesus is on the other side, and he's facing out. And it's like, is that it's hard to
And let me ask you the questions
yeah.
that I think people might ask, which are like, and you didn't have like a massive fever at that point. You weren't sick going into it. You were like hungry, like low blood sugar, nothing like that, right?
No, that's, and I hadn't been on a long fast or anything like that. I was actually, that's why I like to say, even going to the service, I wasn't feeling spiritual. I was tired, and I had
Yeah, but you weren't like delirious from a high fever. You didn't have a flu or something.
no, no. And Rebecca, it's important for, uh, your listeners to understand in my church camp, I guess the church association that I was a part of, that is like people are that, oh, I saw Jesus, I saw Jesus. That's going to really hurt your church. Like it's going to kill your church growth. It's going to, like, people
Because, oh,
when,
oh my God, you're crazy. Like,
yeah, you're crazy.
yeah.
You're like, when people, I mean, even to this day, I know that it can happen, obviously. But when people say that they see Jesus, everybody should take that with a massive grain of salt. And also, people aren't required to believe that just because somebody says that. Like, no one should be convincing someone else, I had this experience with God, or, you know, anything like that. It's like, if that's the Lord's job, if he's trying to communicate something through the testimony.
So,
And
so when that happened to you, then you experienced a major shift
yeah,
in, because you were in growth mode. You were like, the church is a corporation now at this point, and how do we grow it?
yeah,
Before
yeah.
that, but before that experience.
Yes, yeah. Because the other thing I think that I'll tell you what I would think. Well, yeah, the Lord's showing up to, people that are impoverished, in a terrible situation in another country, and where they're persecuted, starving, things like that. Absolutely, I believe God shows up in all kinds of ways, to help those people. But come on, I mean, a mega church pastor in America, like it, it's it's but now I understand why. That's one of my, it took me a year and a half to under why did the Lord do that, or at least and where I could have an answer. But so as soon as I saw the Lord, that's when everything went black, everything went dark. And I like to say it this way. I knew my body was on the earth. I knew that I was standing on that stage, but I was in a different place. And when I began to see where I was, because it was black for a moment. But before I saw, I felt. And what I felt, where I was at the Last Supper. I was convinced I'm at the Last Supper
Now,
somehow.
do you have video of this? Is there a
Yeah, yeah. I'm just on the stage in like a trance. Yeah. Uh,
Okay, so you've watched it back, and could people tell that there was something going on with you at that moment?
yeah, yeah. Some people, some of the staff thought that I was gonna pass out, was having maybe a medical issue, something was
Mhm.
wrong with me. But then, it was packed. I think, whatever the sanctuary held, 2,500 people or so were in there, and re- people felt the presence of the Lord really powerfully.
Mhm.
And there
So
were,
then, when you decide to make this shift toward purpose and mission and transformation, you announced this to your board, or how did that go?
well, let me just close out when I opened but when I saw where I wasn't in like the Last Supper, like in an old, biblical town, the upper room, that kind of thing. I was in what I would call heavenly Hebraic. It was a heavenly Hebraic, uh, kind of like a courtyard. And then that's where the Lord was ministering the Passover meal. And that's a whole different, I mean, that's where really I would say like my encounter starts. And the interesting thing, I do want to say this before this, Rebecca, like, I always, obviously, the Jewish people gave us the word of God. I have Messianic friends, and but I just didn't really know anything about the Hebrews. I didn't know anything about the Jewish Jesus, if you want to say it that way. I didn't know anything about the Hebraic foundations of where our faith comes from. And so that was the big, you don't have a schema for where I was and what I saw, but that had a major outplay in the changes that I made in, coming out of the celebrity church culture, the church growth at all costs culture. Like I basically repented to the congregation for, kind of get back to your question. I basically, I talked to Carrie, and so let me get back to it. So after that happened, I didn't sleep. The Easter Sunday was coming, and Carrie and I were convinced, and we talked to a couple other staff. We were convinced I either don't come on Easter Sunday because I can't. I'm still kind of just, I'm affected. I'm breaking out crying. I'm doing different things. So I was either not going to come, but if I was going to come, I was going to have to talk about it. And so we were convinced that the Lord did it. Part of it, him doing that on Passover, on Good Friday, was so I would say something to that large crowd on Easter. And what we thought was, we actually did the math. We thought that we would lose half the church.
Okay. Have you ever met somebody, they started off to be the most charming, charismatic person you've ever met in your life. Then they turned out to be your worst nightmare. And then when you go to negotiate with them, they're a living hell. Well, I developed something called the Slay Method of Negotiating with Narcissists, and it has helped tens of thousands of people in more than 150 countries win, go from feeling drained and defeated to getting the outcomes they want. And the reason why it works is because I spent more than 20 years studying narcissism as a trial attorney, and now I'm here to help you win too, and also take your suffering and turn it into your superpower. Take your pain and turn it into profit, peace, and purpose as a highly specialized high conflict negotiation coach. If you want to learn how to do it, then just go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I will show you how.
And when I said, just gave a testimony to what happened. And, we got a ton of backlash, but we didn't. Carrie and I had built trust with with the congregation for 20 years.
Right.
And so they knew I they knew me. They knew I would never just come out and say something like that and put all that at risk. And so we started this journey of walking out what I feel the Lord showed me. And a lot of what he showed me was areas in my pastoring where I was doing things I wasn't authorized to do, and I was focusing on things that I thought were important to him, but they aren't important to him at all. And so I had to do a lot of repenting to the congregation, and then we began to make that shift.
Now let's be clear. You weren't doing anything illegal or anything like that.
No, what do you mean?
Because the way you say things I wasn't authorized, I just want to make it clear.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
No, when I mean authorized by the Lord. So
Yeah. I just want to make sure that people understand what you're saying.
No, authorized by the Lord. So, biblically, we're called to be stewards, not rulers. If we're a faithful steward to the Lord, then we can rule in the age to come. And so I was functioning as a ruler instead of a steward, and I was doing things that the Lord, I could say, the things he didn't sanction, things that he didn't call me to, things that I thought were the right way to do things that weren't his way, maybe, and so it was the repentance of all these things that I had learned. So that's kind of where we go back to the beginning. I planted the church on the mission field. It's real raw. Church grows. Now all the church growth conferences start, the church growth movement. And so, we're sucked into that because the church is growing so much. And then I became a part of that. And then I began to, that's where I got off, because in those circles, it just becomes about, whoever has the biggest church,
Oh, I see.
and it's about hierarchy, it's about power.
So
And
I want to get to the part where you get, because I want people to start to hear about more of what happened to you, because it was like a very narcissistic kind of experience. So you go and you say, I want to shift how I'm doing things here. And then, I mean, how did you get to the place where you were forced to resign, basically?
so, as we started this shift, one of the big things that the Lord showed me was, it was two big things. One was about hierarchy. The Lord has authority, but it's not like worldly hierarchy. And then the other one was about how the church is called to be a community, not a business enterprise.
Right.
And so it was part of this transition is I wanted to get the enterprise out of the church.
Mm.
So, what happened to celebration, which, a lot of churches do, it's just what you learn, as the church grows. Well, you basically, you have with it might be called a media department. It's really a media company and a publishing company and almost your own construction company. And it's massive HR, and it just becomes this
It's
machine.
a corporation, basically.
It is a corporation. And what happens to pastors, man, when that machine starts, it needs money, and you don't even realize it. I can tell you, I realize it now looking back, but the how you preach giving and things like that, you as it grows, you got to fill the seats, and the money has to come in because it is an enterprise. And we've kind of made this really unbiblical, um, I guess, marker of success, and that is, okay, if you have a big church, then okay, then you're successful. That means that you're following God and you're favored by God. But I
Mm.
mean, I think we can all look right now around the body of Christ, like all of these mega church pastors, it's almost like once you get to the biggest, it's almost like something, there's just been a lot of
Yeah.
falling. There's been a lot of self-destruction. And I would say this, that's because, kind of back to this thing what the Lord showed me, we're not, as a pastor, those are the Lord's people. They're his sheep. We're not called to be kings. We're not called to be rulers.
Right.
Like even King David, he had a heart after God, but God didn't want Israel to have a king. Kings get powerful and prideful, and I was certainly one of those that was dysfunctional, that was prideful, and you know, and then other you can make bad judgments when you're in that place. Yeah.
Right. All right. So what happened? So you
Okay.
tell the board that you want to make a shift, or was it just sort of like over time you started clashing?
Yeah, so Carrie and I we had already talked about, we wanted to make this shift to being founding pastors. We want to go back to focusing on missions. We want to do a lot of things for underprivileged communities. We want to, and then now after my encounter with the Lord, I want to help pastors. There were a lot of pastors self-destructing over COVID, and kind of show them there's another system. You don't have to have the machine run everything, so to speak. And so we started that shift, that transition, and I'm saying things now that I didn't realize then, but because I had helped build the church growth association that I was a part of, and because I had championed all of those things, Well, when I began to I renounce, I didn't come out and say, I renounce, it wasn't like that. But when I began to say, I no longer believe in those things, and those things aren't right. Well, it obviously threatened a lot of people, a lot more than I thought
Mm-hmm.
it would, And
Yeah.
so there were a lot of threatened people. And then we had uh, a couple of board members. They wanted all the enterprise in the church. And it got to kind of this, 3 or 4 factions. Everybody had their own reasons for wanting to destroy me. I don't know what other word to use.
Now, were they starting this before this happened? Was there already some friction going on?
No, this was all after my encounter with the Lord. When what we
Okay.
call the plan, the seed of the plan to basically they're going to install a shadow government, and they're going to divide up the kingdom, if you want to say it like that. And they're going to, I guess, destroy Carrie and I. So that started in the summer of 2019. That what we have absolute evidence for now. So that was in the summer of 2019. If you want to call it the coup, okay, what was underneath in the shadows didn't become manifest until January 2022.
Okay. So it was happening and you didn't know.
No, we didn't know. And that's, boy, if I would have been listening to you,
You would
boy,
have known.
back then, oh my goodness, I could have, we knew something was wrong. But Rebecca, our bylaws, I never thought people would break the law. Some of these people I had trusted for 20 years. I mean, I never thought some of these people would like embezzle millions. I never in my so part of me, I look back now, I'm like, Stovall, how could you have been so dumb and trust some of these people? But I trusted them for 20 years, and I just didn't think they would.
And you guys had like some of these people you had taken vacations together, raised your
Yes.
kids together. I
Yep.
mean, these are people that you knew.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when what happened was, you and your listeners will appreciate this, as things were going along, and a couple of those people, one I busted for fraudulent billing and embezzlement. Another one, uh,
And
I
you didn't know any of this was happening before.
none. I had no idea. And so when their threat of exposure got high, that's when they kicked it into overdrive. When I began to expose some of them, that's when they just went ballistic. Yeah.
Yeah. So you start to uncover all of this and then they start gaslighting you, smear campaigning, like full out attack. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what they did was I was dismissing one of these trustees that I had uncovered uh, fraudulent billing and some embezzlement. I didn't know how much, but I just knew. And so I was having the meeting with him at the end of the year. Some other people knew about it. I mean, they were going to be in the meeting, and that's where the big confrontation is. And, are we going to report him to the authorities? Is he going to make things right and all that kind of stuff? And so he, I thought he only thought, the plan was, hey, we're having an end of the year review, come to this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because people that were the the church association, these other people that had already invested all of this, had been in this plan for 2 years. When
Mm-hmm.
they found out about that, what they did was to make a long story short, I get um, a letter from an attorney, never heard of them. You're banned from the property. If you come to the property, you'll be arrested for trespassing. I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, you're under investigation, which in our bylaws, you can't even, that's not how you do an investigation. Our bylaws are really good for doing investigations of me or anybody else, for anything where it's done in a way that doesn't destroy the community of faith. And so they sent in these ARC attorneys and banned me from the property illegally.
Your
And
own church, the one that you started.
the one that I started, the one that my name is on everything. I'm responsible for everything. They banned me, and then they brought these ARC attorneys and they changed the bylaws literally in the shadow of night, and all of a sudden said they're the church and I'm not the church. And then I said, well, they couldn't tell me anything that I did wrong. They said I'm under possible financial misconduct. I said, where's the audit? I ordered an audit. You just go down those lines. Well, what
Yeah.
did I do? Of course
Yeah.
so it was months. They wouldn't interview me. They wouldn't talk to me. And then when we realized, us and our attorneys realized they're just trying to destroy us. And the smear campaign had they had been smearing us for a year and a half. And so when we resigned, so that's why I resigned. They weren't going to interview us. They're destroying us. They had this control. And I said, I can't submit myself to this type of evil.
Right.
And so when I did that, 2 weeks later, that's when they published a report to the media. They published it to the media. They had stolen some of Carrie's medical information. That's what we know now from the
Crazy.
sub. Yeah, they were watching her. They hacked into her Zoom sessions with her therapist. Carrie has nothing to do with this, like nothing.
Well,
Nothing.
but then now she does because they've roped her into it, right?
Yeah, no, it's and then they accused us of the crimes that they committed. It's your classic, it's your Darbo. It's just like when I heard your first talk on that, I was like, oh my gosh, everything makes sense. And
Yeah.
what was really sinister about it, Rebecca, was they published it to the media. It was global. It seemed like overnight. But in Jacksonville, the way that they did it, it was designed not just for people, but it was designed for authorities. That's why, like, they put the stuff in there, crazy and this, and we're the criminals and all this. It was designed for the authorities in Jacksonville to deflect from them to us, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys have been through it in the last 2 years now, right?
yeah, it's been three years. It'll be
Oh yeah,
3 years.
3 years. It is 3 years. It is 2025. Um, so and you're in multiple legal disputes and dealing with this. I mean, it's just been pure hell for you and Carrie for the last 3 years. What can you tell me about what you've learned as far as um, dealing with conflict in the last 3 years?
Oh, well, I mean, I've learned how I view people,
Mm-hmm.
how I respond to people, I mean, I was very trusting.
Mm-hmm.
I was, I would delegate things. I was just trusting Rebecca,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't see uh, how people manipulate.
Mm.
I didn't. It's like I feel like in some ways because of they're still like they're still trying to destroy us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I feel like on a personal level, I didn't know. I felt like, and I know this, some people go through far worse things than Carrie and I, but I felt like we really encountered evil, like the
Mm-hmm.
spirit behind it. It was so, it's not just enough to cut you off and slander you to the world. No, we're going to evict you. And we're not only going to evict you, we're not going to give you one dime. And we're not only going to give you one dime, we're going to shame your wife. And we're not only going to do that, we're going to try to freeze our personal assets. If I went down the list of things that they've done and continue to do, and that's what's been so frustrating because in all these legal cases, they've accepted our allegations as true and they plead ecclesiastical abstention, even though they've committed all these crimes. And so that's how they've been able, we haven't been able to have one piece of evidence shown, one deposition. The courts, uh, they'll just, maybe this is a real, it's so mind-boggling to me how a judge can look at really serious crime that are in the allegations and say, well, the court's not going to look into it. This is a church matter.
It seems like every celebrity has access to GLP-1s these days, but what about the rest of us? Now you don't need to be rich or famous to access personalized, tailored weight loss solutions just for you. Through Hers, you can take control of your health. Hers is changing women's healthcare by providing access to holistic weight loss solutions, including GLP-1 treatments with the same active ingredients as Ozempic and Wegovy, oral medication kits, and more. You'll connect with a medical provider who will develop a plan based on your needs. And if prescribed, your medication is included as part of a doctor-designed weight loss program, complete with ongoing care, online support, all at no additional cost. Plans start at just $199 a month with a 12-month subscription, paid up front, and your treatment ships directly to your door. So if you've been struggling with weight loss and you want to find the right solution just for you, start your free online visit today at forhers.com/negotiate. That's forhers.com/negotiate for your personalized weight loss treatment options. Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded programs are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required, restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. So, I mean, I want to say, though, I think that you've learned a lot about, you know, calling upon the people in your life that you know are to be true, and also your faith in dealing with all of
Yeah,
this,
yeah, yeah.
and navigating conflict with grace, and learning
Yes.
how to de-escalate tension and respond and not react, and to observe and not absorb. What would you say to somebody who's dealing with this, and how to hold on to their values in navigating difficult people or in high pressure situations?
Yeah, so number one, like the first thing that's been huge is which we've always had, but it's like how much we appreciate it now is just loving the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you do, don't lie. If we just always tell the truth, and we stand for the truth, there might be a lot of opposition, but the return for that is reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to live in reality and not in some type of false reality with who you think are your friends that are also in this false type of reality, living in reality is it's a real blessing.
Yeah. And
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 and you said something else about the facts too, which I think is really important because I think a lot of people they get caught up in story of like what could happen and what should have happened and the unfairness of it all.
yeah,
But really focusing down and doubling down on the facts and knowing your truth and then taking your documentation um and using that as what you can stand behind, I think is so important, right?
yeah, and
And you actually said something earlier about how you had gone into certain meetings and people would say that something was said and that it wasn't said that way or whatever, and you started actually writing down exactly what was said, and I thought that was really, really important. You want to talk about that a little bit?
yeah, just when we realized, I've always been a guy on my I guess gift test or whatever. I'm a promoter, I'm a convincer, and so it's two things started like all this stuff was going on. So I kept thinking like, okay, well, if I just prove this thing wrong, then okay, then this is going to go away. And after three or four times, I realized that these people aren't interested in any solution. They're not interested in the truth. They are not interested. They're committed to misunderstanding me.
Oh yeah, of course.
So
Yeah.
when that happened, I realized, okay, why am I constantly in these meetings talking about the same thing when we've already made the decisions and we've, uh, you know, uh, given this direction or that direction. And I would come in the meeting and they would say, "Oh no, you never said that. We didn't decide that." And so I started writing those things down. So I'd say, "Well, I did say that." And I would tell people to stick to your truth, your reality. Never, I mean, if we just in your gut what you said, what the truth was, all of that. So stick to that. And so what I started doing was, okay, well, okay, we're deciding this. Okay, move forward. And I would write it down and I would put the time and everything. And so then, sure enough, I go back in the next meeting. Oh, you never said that. We didn't do that. And then well, no, I have it right here in writing. I wrote this. Y'all remember that? And Carrie really began to document really well. And what we found was, once again, Rebecca, we thought, okay, well, now, man, here it is in writing. We did decide, you've been gaslighting, you've been lying. That'll change them. No.
Oh no.
Then
I
the
just
next
I
meeting
just
was,
said to you, like, they don't hear if you scream it, say it nicely,
yeah,
present facts. It doesn't matter because they don't
it
want
doesn't
to.
matter. But I would say this, it's like, uh, what I've learned through this has been such a blessing.
Mm.
I wouldn't,
Talk more about that. Tell us more about that.
yeah, I would not trade it. I mean, it's been horrible. It's been so difficult seeing my wife, who she's just such a good person, and it's like, anyway, seeing her go through this has been absolutely horrible. But I would say I I know I'm following God, and I can't imagine still. I think maybe this had to happen for us to get out of that system, to really
Mm.
get out of that system and
Yeah.
see what's really behind the mask when
Yeah.
you don't champion, church growth at all cost and the celebrity pastor deal. When you,
Well, I think it comes down to not living in alignment with
yeah,
what you were
yeah,
meant to do, what your soul is meant to do.
yeah, 100%. And then, uh, learning about people, and then like you're saying, how to just endure, how to be
Yeah.
patient, how to start enjoying the little things in life again, how to you see who your friends are.
Mm.
Don't take anything for
I always
granted.
say defend your light with your life.
Yes, you see your real friends, and gosh, you so appreciate uh the things like, I remember when I would be on the mission field for a long time, and I'd come back and I'd be like, oh my gosh, air conditioning. Like, oh my gosh, fast, I'm
Like
like
the things that
so
you just start to take for
take for
granted.
granted. And
Yeah.
then like, so recently I've been able to do a couple of things that, I mean, we've just done a lot. We've done a lot all over the world. We we did some really amazing things and have seen some amazing places and been with some amazing people. And so it's like the simple thing, I don't like I got to do I don't know if your viewers necessarily agree with hunting or not, but like it's little things like that. Like I got to go for a hunt for the first time in 5 years. I could used to could do that whenever I wanted, or I got to take my son uh, out on a boat. I used to could do that all the time. It's like these little moments that you do with friends or family that, like, wow, I took this for granted. I think that would, learning to appreciate the little things in life. And for us, we've always done real well, but it's been very humbling, not being able to pay your bills, to really like so I'm just saying, maybe it's embarrassing. I've never been able to identify with not being able to pay your bills. I can identify with that now. That's a really we're okay now, but there was a while there where we didn't have health insurance. We couldn't pay our bills, and so it's identifying with. There's some people who live like that all the time, and they're doing the best that they can, and it's also how I've been able to identify with different groups of people that I could understand their challenge, but I couldn't identify with it. Does that make sense?
Of course. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can identify with what you're saying, quite frankly, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So, what can you say to people who are, stuck in a situation right now where they feel like hopeless, where they feel, maybe they want to give up. Maybe they just feel like I can't, this is too insurmountable. The financial aspect, the smear campaign, all of that. What advice would you give to them?
I would tell them that as horrible as impossible as it seems right now, that if they can maintain hope, if they can have faith in God, and a lot of people say, well, I've been doing that and it's not working. Well, it's not working yet. All I can say is this: I know that if you can just hold out, know that you're valued, you're loved. There's people that are going through similar things like you are,
Hmm.
and this is how I like to say it this way. Um, you're getting your credentials.
Hmm.
Like, you're getting like you're getting your credentials for being a warrior for good, a
Mm.
warrior for truth. You have to have a testimony. There's no it's David and Goliath. He's got to get past.
David and Goliath. I often say that too.
Yeah, and that's in everything in life. I think people that when I don't want to say people that amount to something, I want to say people with substance.
Hmm.
And it has nothing to do with how much money they make or things like that. Um, you can find them just all over the place, but people of substance have been through extreme pain because most of the time, they've chosen truth, and truth makes you live in reality. And the lie or the delusion, the facade, all the narcissism, the witchcraft, the self-promotion, all of that kind of stuff, if you're bought, if you're enslaved, all those things, if you're, doing it for popularity or whatever, if you stand for the truth, you're going to live in reality, and that is going to bring pain, but you're building this substance, this character, like you're a person that can really help people, can really guide people.
Yes.
And I'm sure, Rebecca, you know people like that. I'm sure your listeners do. Like there's a couple of people, I call them like there's both women and men. It's like they're these salt of the earth people. And when I really want to talk to someone that I can trust and that I know that there's substance, there's substance in them to both listen and to speak wisdom, I go to those people. And I think that's what you're doing with what you're really helping to do with your coaching network, because this spirit, under the spirit behind all of this narcissistic behavior, I just want to say how it's rampant. Social media is making it exponential. It's like a health hazard. And I don't know how people now, like what I've learned, I don't know how they navigate life without having training in this. I think it is one of the most important things. Like, you can see people now. Oh no, they went down like I was watching this one interview, and sure enough, the person took the bait. Narcissist got him off topic, deflected. You can just see how we need as many people as possible showing their light. We need as many people as possible that can speak the truth in grace. And we need as many people, Jesus said, wise as serpents, but harmless as doves, that can understand and see when people are engaging in manipulation and toxic behavior and things like that.
Yeah. So this is so beautiful. And your wife is also such a beautiful person. I mean, I've gotten to know her through the coaching program, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing in the world. And, I really believe with your skills, I mean, you guys have these skills to obviously enroll people and create a community and coach and do all the things that are so important for people. And so I know that, you're just going to take all of those skills and turn them into something absolutely incredible and impactful. And it's just going to, take you in a different direction now. So I'm so excited to witness it and be a part of your journey. I'll admit it, I'm that person. I'm the one the night before a birthday, an anniversary, or any kind of special occasion, I'm frantically searching the aisles for the right card, and one that doesn't seem kind of corny or cringeworthy. You know the struggle, right? But then I found Moonpig. It's a total game changer. They have tons of adorable, funny, even heartfelt designs ready to go, and you can even personalize them, which is super cool. You can even upload your favorite photos or tweak the text to make it uniquely you. And they'll even suggest clever messages if you're feeling stuck. Oh, and no more forgetting birthdays or scrambling for addresses. Moonpig lets you save everything in one place and even sends you reminders. Plus, they've got the opportunity to upload gift cards from all your favorite places like Sephora or Starbucks, so you can really nail that perfect gift vibe. Once you've designed your card, they'll even mail it for you, or if you want to hand deliver it, they'll send it to you with a cool envelope. So guess what? This is your chance. Your first card is totally free. Just use the code FREE and go to moonpig.com/US/negotiate. Seriously, stop stressing and start impressing. Make someone's day with Moonpig. Try it right now.
Well, I really appreciate it. And, Rebecca, we would have never, talking about all the blessings, we would have never met if this didn't
It's true.
happen. And with my encounter with Jesus, what I understand now, well, the suffering, what's been an encouragement to me is I can see in the scriptures where when people have an experience with God that's really powerful, suffering always follows. It's just part of the package, But that suffering produces a rebirthing of life. It kills the bad and it gives birth to the new, And so, like, you're a new friend. We have all these great there's all this newness of life that is. Does that make sense? And so people that are struggling with hope, there's newness of life coming.
You're making space. You're creating space in your life for higher vibrational energy.
Yes. Yep.
And I always say in my program, and Carrie may have heard me say this about how you attract the energy that you are, because we are beings of energy, and like attracts like, and that's a law of physics, right?
Yep.
And so you can't attract what you want unless you are putting out that frequency. And I always say it's sort of like a radio station. Like, if you're down here at 88.5, you're not going to attract 107.3 because you have tuned your radio station to that.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I'm just thinking of all the scriptures that kind of line up with what with what you're saying there. And that's why people that are bringing light, if you have light, you like to come to the light, like the darkness, that energy is always going to gravitate there. Your levels of light are always going to gravitate there. And then you have agreement with that energy and with that power. And that's really something special.
Right. So, Wayne Dyer used to say, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And so you have to be it first, and I always say be, do, have. And most people think it's do, and then they'll have, and then they'll be what they want to be. But that's not how it works. You have to be it first, then do the work, and then you'll have what you want.
What was that, Rebecca, that you shared with Carrie and I? Because it really, it was really good. I just feel maybe some of the listeners, before we go, need to hear it. It was like, we were downloading, a lot of this stuff to you, and you kind of step back and it was what you told us about how, okay, the first thing is you've got to get your mind right. Like you guys are, you're overcomers. You're gonna win the, and I want you to, do you remember?
I don't remember exactly what I said, but I often talk about how, you have to be what you want before you can, like, you have to believe it. You have to have it in your mind. You have to know, just like, as like when you woke up this morning, that your name is Stovall and that you're a male and that, you live wherever you live. It's like, it's just you just know that you are going to have justice in this, and that this is the way the outcome is going to be. Just like a GPS, you'll put it in your car. You get in your car and you go, okay, I'm going to drive from Jacksonville to Savannah or whatever. You put a GPS, and you don't go, well, maybe I'll get there, but maybe I won't. I don't know. I could die on the side of the road. You don't say that to yourself. You say, I'm going to be in Savannah, and your brain is already in Savannah, and you already know what hotel you're staying at, and you know where you're going to eat dinner. And you're just like, physically you are already there. And
And you were telling us too, like y'all are too, uh, you're not on defense, you're offense. Like you were telling us like, uh,
stop being on defense all the time.
yeah,
You're
with
not on
that, like you got
offense.
to be already there. You've got to,
You got
all
to
of those
start being on
things.
offense because you're just all you're doing is responding instead of, or reacting rather, reacting to everything that's happening. And then you're at the effect of it all the time. And that's how
Yeah.
they keep their power, by the way. That's how they keep their
Yes.
power, by being at the effect, because that's that cold-level supply. And then so what you got to do is cut off their supply source because they're basically drug addicts. That's what they are. So,
Uh-huh.
and they don't care if you're the cocaine level or the crack level or street whatever. I mean, they'll take whatever version they can get. And as long as there's supply to be had, they're gonna go for it. So, you gotta like where it's like push, push, push. You just gotta be the one that's like, okay, I'm not pushing back anymore, but I am going to go on the offensive and I'm going to, um, uh, be tactical and strategic about this. But, using the tools that I've created, like my magic leverage AI and all of that, and, which is an AI that I created to just
We
take
love
all
it.
of your
Yeah,
documentation.
we love it. It's changed that. Yes, thank you. That's why I laughed when you said that. Oh my gosh, that anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad. Well, yeah, go ahead and tell people about it because I think it's like I'm so like amazed at it myself. I didn't build it, but I came up with the idea, but I didn't build it. So I'm like blown away by it too, like this whole AI thing. But that's how you get them to be cut off because if they realize that a better supply source is going to be threatened, then they're going to let go of the low level supply. Um,
Hmm.
but you have to know first that this is how it's going to go. Because if you don't feel that, if your energy's not there, if your emotion's not there, your mindset's not there, then nobody can help you. You can have the best lawyers in the world and nobody's going to help
Hmm.
you because your lawyers are just a mouthpiece for you. Like they're just, you've got to feed them all the facts and you've got to show them, how to get where you want to go. So being in charge, having agency. If you feel like you lack agency, if you feel like you're a victim, you're always going to be a victim because
Right.
that's what the world is going to show you. That's what you're basically uh, placing an order for is more victimhood.
That is so good. And I just want to say there's a religious way to say that. You say it much better, much more effective. You know that it's like it's just really good. So thanks for all you do and thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, you guys are great people, and I'm excited, to see what you guys do next. Like I said, you've got these incredible skills to enroll people, to create, to train, to impact, to be in mission, and maybe it just is going to look a different way for you, but. These are incredible skills that very few people don't have. And so you're
Thank
going to
you.
do even bigger things with this.
Thank you. Yeah, we believe it. We're excited about these next steps and the future and yeah, so thanks a ton. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.